All right, guys, we're live on another Let's Chat Live on a Saturday. And let me just fix that camera a little bit. So, today's topic, since again, you guys on my community tab are not giving me a suggestion, so I'm going to pick a topic. And the topic today is financial mistakes to avoid. All right, so we're going to talk about financial mistakes that I made over my many years of investments, savings, real estate, you name it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And let me introduce myself. This is my live stream I have every Saturday. Usually I try to keep it between 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, but for some reason I can't get it early. So right now it's around 2 o'clock. So welcome all. I'm Joe Saglimbeni. I'm a blue collar worker who has been investing in stocks, some real estate for over 3 decades. And I'm here to just try to help the people there in my subscribers, my viewers in the YouTube world on saving money, investing, and growing their channel. And I also do some unboxing videos. And obviously, I do live streaming and several things, but I do several topics. So we could talk about, you can find many things on my channel. And I just want to say before we do this, we continue. I am not a financial professional. So this is just my opinion. So please do your due diligence and seek out a financial professional if you need any opinion on stocks, real estate, banking, or anything. This is just my opinion. So please study, read books, and reach out to a financial pro. All right. So today, I figure I would talk about some of the financial mistakes I made over my 3 or 4 decades of investing and, buying real estate, you name it. I'm going to cover some topics, but I don't think it's really a top 10 list or top 5 list or anything like that. I'm going to try to keep the one that I think is the most important for the last thing we talk about. But basically, I think that one of the mistakes that I made, several mistakes I made, but one of the main mistakes I made was when I first got my first job. I should have started an IRA, individual retirement account. And we're talking about way back when I was in my teens and was able to start an account. I should have started an individual retirement account. I just should have started it because it was a tax advantaged account, isn't a tax advantaged account, and it would have kept me motivated to saving. It would have got me to get to the habit of saving. I think if you started saving or you start saving at a young age, you get into the habit of saving. And once you start seeing your money grow, whether it be in a bank account, a checking account, a small savings account, a CD, to me, it motivated me to save. Later on in life, I ended up wanting to create and make that account bigger. So I think that's the first thing that any worker should start, even in their teens, at least start saving something. But if they could start in an individual retirement account and save in that account, I think that they should do that. And really, that means that you have to do the habit of saving. So that means paying yourself first. maybe if you made $10 an hour, maybe you pay yourself 10%, a dollar, and you put it on the side. I remember when I was working in a restaurant and I would make tips, I would save my tips or count my tips every night, and I would put aside in a little jar about 10% of those tips. So if I made $40 in tips that night, I would put $4 in a separate, like, piggy bank. And that was something that was a good habit. That was a good thing I was doing. So let's talk about some of the financial mistakes that I made. One of the financial mistakes that I made was when the Roth IRA was first started back, I believe in the 90s. I should have did my very best to fully fund that Roth IRA, completely fund it, because the IRA ended up now for me being a very important and very important, powerful tool that even now you can utilize. I can currently utilize right now, and I should have really fully funded the Roth IRA. I actually like the Roth IRA better than a 401k. The only problem with a Roth IRA is that you can't put as much in. You can only maximize a certain amount every year. It's limited compared to the 401k, which, depending on your employer, can be 20 grand a year. You can't quite do that with a Roth IRA, but for young workers, I recommend the Roth IRA first before the 401k, believe it or not. And then go to the 401k, which is another financial mistake. If you have the chance or the ability to fully fund a 401k, or at least fund it with the match from your employer, then I think that would be the next step to do. Don't, the mistake that I had when I first started and was offered a 401k in my company, I didn't fully fund it to where I could afford it. Even if it hurts, I should have fully funded it, 15%, 20% of my check every week. And I wish I would have done that, because my assets 20 years later would have been larger than they are now. So that's, if I were to do it all over again, that's a financial mistake that I wish I would have avoided. Fully funded a Roth IRA and fully fund a 401k, company 401k. Another financial mistake. By the way, how you doing, Christian? Thanks for joining the chat. Another financial mistake that I made was not having or not building an emergency fund. Believe it or not, even though I own a house and I have a 401k and a Roth IRA and I have some assets, I should have been building a separate emergency fund, and like maybe 10, 20, 30, maybe 10 or $20,000 that was just earmarked for emergency. Now, even to this day, I don't do that. I kind of like the theory of keeping everything invested. So, for example, I'll keep my banking or my checking account very small and fully invest with automatic investments into my stock market accounts, my crypto accounts, my uh, my savings accounts that are like CD type accounts. When I should have done that, I should have created or built an emergency fund account and then set up the automatic after a certain amount. So, like after 10 grand, automatically invest in this stock account. And I tell you why I do that, because emergencies happen. And I've had several over the last couple of decades where I had to actually sell a stock that I didn't want to sell. And when I sold that stock, I incurred a capital gain, which later on in my taxes, I had to pay a short term gain. So I wish that I can continue or try to build an emergency fund. I actually would suggest people to build an emergency account first before they start doing automatic dollar cost investing into mutual funds or stock accounts or crypto accounts. Um, I am starting to do that now, where I am creating or building up an emergency account. It's a little late, even though I look young. It's a little late, but it's never too late to build an emergency account. Now, what else? Let's go into, and if hey Scott, how are you, Scott? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you there. Hope everything's safe and you're healthy. It's good to see you. If you want, give me a call in a couple hours. We could talk. But thanks for joining my live stream. That's my buddy Scott out there, Mr. Movie News himself. Um, when it comes to real estate, I have made a couple of mistakes with real estate. Most of it is good. Hey, thanks, Slick Force. My cousin out there, Nick Saglimbeni. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for loving the channel. Real estate mistakes. So I've owned several properties over the last 20 years, and I only own one property right now, which is a house. But the real estate mistakes that I think I made is one, my first property I ever bought was a condominium, and it was a foreclosure in the mid 90s, 1990s. I bought this condo, and I decided to buy a foreclosure because it was cheap. That might have been a mistake. Well, it turned out not to be a mistake, but for the first 5 years, it was a mistake, because in those 5 years, I had to work my butt off to fix the apartment, the condo, air conditioning, sheetrock, leaks in the pipes, uh, woodwork, windows. I must have spent over $25,000 to fix. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, well, you're bald too, Scott. I had to. I probably spent over $25,000 to fix that condo. Now, I had that apartment for almost 20 years, and I did make money and a profit on that condo. So in the end, it wasn't a mistake to buy the foreclosure, but I should have really selected the right foreclosure for myself at the time. And that was a major mistake, because I probably would have increased my wealth even more, where if I would have picked the right foreclosure with maybe a contractor or somebody, that a trusted friend who was into doing contracting work, could have came with me. We could have looked over everything, and I may have even chewed down that price that I paid for that condo, which would have been another thing. I might have still bought the same condo, but reduced the price even more. So that was a real estate mistake that I made. Another real estate mistake that I think I made was putting too much money down on a property. So again, that's the same thing as the emergency fund. So, for example, I tried to put more than 20% down on my properties. But nowadays, you really don't have to do that. Though if you want to avoid PMI, you may want to put 20% down on the property. But I ended up trying to put more than 20%, 22, 23, 24% down on a property when I shouldn't have, because that kind of made my bank account go down, where if as soon as you move into a property, sometimes you end up having things you didn't even realize. And I could have kept that money to use for those problems I had, maybe windows or an AC or a heating unit or a roofing, repairing a roof. So putting too much money down on a property, you don't have to do it these days. And that's something that I should have avoided. And I would just say that you put down what you can afford to put down, add up all the money, your interest, your property tax, and align it with your expenses that you're currently. So if you have an apartment and you're renting, what's up, guys? High tech, non tectonic. How you doing, Scott? Obviously, Slick Force and Christian. A lot of guys today on this live stream. I usually only get about 3, so it must be the fact that my good looks. But let's say you rent an apartment and your expenses with your apartment and your rent is $2,000 a month. A lot of people don't realize when you're going to buy a house, they add stuff like insurance and property tax and your mortgage, but they don't ever add utilities or your phone bill. So I recommend when you're buying a house, don't make this mistake, because I have made this mistake. Try to get the utilities what they cost from the utility company for that house, and try to add in what your phone would be or your cable would be into this whole thing, so that you know what you can afford every month. Because I got to tell you, they don't let you know that the real estate industry doesn't want to add in utilities or your phone or your cable or even your miscellaneous expenses, like maybe you have somebody that does the yard, your landscaper. They want you to get that house, and the bank wants you to use them. So make sure for yourself you add that in so that you can afford that property. I think it's very important that you do that when you're buying real estate. You know, so that's some of the thanks, Tectonic. Thanks a lot. Um, I would say I I'm I let me give you some stock mistakes I made. So I've been investing in stocks for, my God, since I was like 20. I know I look 20, but I'm not 20 years old, believe it or not. But I invested in stocks way back in the early 1990s. And I would say the mistakes that I made in stocks back then, I don't make them now, but the mistakes that I should have avoided back then was buying these penny stocks. Penny stocks, even warrants, even some of these SPACs you got to be careful with today. But penny stocks, like stocks that are going for $1 or $2 or $5, that have no revenues, nothing on their balance sheets. I used to play those when I was in the 1990s, and I got to tell you, I I lost 40-50% of my money because I played those stupid stocks that you don't need to play. It's almost like gambling. You don't have to gamble in stocks, and I don't do that anymore. Also, back in the 90s, I used to use a lot of margin. And when you have a stock investing account, let's say Fidelity will give you uh, they'll approve you for margin where you can borrow against your stocks that you're holding, and usually you can borrow up to 50% of the stocks you have. So if you have $10,000 worth of stocks, you can borrow 5 grand to invest with, and they'll charge you a small interest rate and you have to pay that marginable money back. So here's the thing. I try now, I'm allowed to margin, but I try not to buy stocks on margin. If it happens to go into my margin account, usually a small amount, which I can pay off pretty quick. But nowadays, I don't even mess around with margin. I don't think I have to invest. Invest using margin. I try to stick with very strong companies that have very good earnings and very good revenue growth and are leading brands, stuff like Nike. And I've said this in other videos: Costco, Nike, Amazon, MasterCard. These companies are blue chip companies, and that's the way I would say now I would tell people to invest. Start with the blue chips, then learn about the risky companies. All right, so that's one of the things that I. Bezos, Jeff Bezos stepping down. People want to know about that. um, my opinion on it. Well, he's not really stepping down. So Slick Force, he's not really stepping down. He's got, he's putting in a new CEO in there, and he's going to be. He's still the biggest owner of the shares of Amazon. And what do I think? Well, I think short term it might affect the company. I remember the day that Bill Gates kind of stepped down from being a CEO, and they got Steve Ballmer in there, and I remember that back then people were like, Steve Ballmer, what's happening with Bill Gates? But Bill Gates is still tied to Microsoft, and I believe Jeff Bezos will uh, continue to be tied to Amazon. And he's not an old man; he's less than 60 years old, and I think for the next decade he's still going to be very tied to Amazon. So Slick Force, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Amazon continues to be a large holding in my portfolio, and I'm going to continue to buy Amazon on dips. And by the way, again, I just want to make a disclaimer here: not a financial professional, and I don't even play one on YouTube. I just want to say, do your due diligence. These are risky investments, real estate stocks, and I really think that you should learn about them and reach out to a stock professional or financial planner to make sure that you make the right choice for yourself. Okay, so these are just opinions, and I just wanted to let you know that. And by the way, guys, give me a like on this video. All you guys out there, give me a like on this video. And this is a heavy chat today. I'm surprised. I got my cousin out there, my one of my best friends, Scott, out there, Christians out there, and Tectonic is out there. And thanks, guys. Hopefully, you're learning something from these financial mistakes that I've made and continue to make. And no, I'm not a professional, Scott. I'm not a professional. I just look like one. Actually, my portfolio performs like one. But hope you guys are enjoying this video. Let me see. Do I have any? Let's see. What I got? I wrote something down here. Oh, one of the biggest financial mistakes that I continue to make, and I know you guys out there are continuing to make, paying for services you don't need. That one is like, for example, let's say I'll do Netflix as an example. Let's say you never use Netflix and you pay what is it, $13 a month for Netflix. Well, get rid of those services if you're not going to use them. I mean, if you're not going to use Netflix, don't use Netflix. Another one is stuff like warranties. If you're not going to use these warranties, or you find that these warranties are not needed any longer, maybe it's 5, 6 years later, like a car warranty, stop paying for it. Call them up, quit it, and stop paying for it. If you don't think the warranty is worth the price, don't do it. That's another example. Example like XM satellite radio. Now, I love XM satellite radio, but you'll get caught that you're paying every year or 3 years for XM satellite radio and you're not listening to the radio. So that's another thing. So try to figure out exactly. You only get what you need. Most people. Oh, I see. Okay, tectonic. I see that. Um, oh, that you leave. You guys are funny. The chat room was very, very busy today, and I want to thank all you guys right there in the chat room. But stop saying for service. Stop paying for services you don't need. Look over all your services. Look at your credit card statements, and don't pay for services you don't need. And that leads me up to the point of credit cards. Credit. So I'm continuing to this day to try to pay many credit cards down. I am not against credit cards. I think you can utilize credit cards. You could use strategically. You could utilize credit cards. I have several credit cards that pay me points and pay me cash back. I would say try to use those credit cards and don't try to hold a balance in the credit cards. That would be another mistake that I've made and continue to pay for it by paying down my credit cards. So one thing I would have to say, I've listened to Dave Ramsey, who you guys might know as a talk show host, who likes to live debt free. I would say that when you're young, if you can, try to avoid credit cards, and he tries to avoid credit cards by using debit cards or a secured type of credit card. He's completely against credit cards and credit, which I'm not completely against, because I think credit could make you wealthier using it the right way. Guys, give me a great like on this live stream, and I hope you're continuing to like. If you guys have any questions, I'll look at the chat and see if you have any questions. Out there. I answered my cousin Nick Saglimbeni's question about Jeff Bezos. I don't think it's going to affect Amazon that much, and I think Amazon's one of the greatest investments I've ever had. And going forward, I continue to buy on the dip. Anything out there, Scott? You have any questions for me, Scott, Mr. Movie News? What do you think of the state of the movie industry? Maybe I'll do that in a future live stream. How the economy has affected several different type of industries. So what are some other financial mistakes? How about you think it's going to collapse the movie industry, Scott? We have to talk about that. But another marriage is a financial. Wow, that's a good one. Financial mistake. Is marriage a financial mistake? Well, a wedding, which I paid for my own wedding, by the way, it was an expensive endeavor. And I got to tell you, if I did it all over again, I would cut that bill in half. But it was a great wedding. But you can't save on you can make a financial mistake by spending on a wedding and not planning it out right. Wedding. Thank you, Nick. And the photographer on that was Nick Saglimbeni, and he did a pretty good job. I got to give him a thumbs up. 5 stars for Nick Saglimbeni and Slick Force. But yeah, a wedding could be very expensive, but it can be such a fun affair. And I did spend a lot of money on my wedding, but I got to tell you, I don't regret it. It was one of the most beautiful days of my life, and my marriage has continued to be strong, and my wife continues to use my money that I give her for some reason. Did she marry me for my looks, which I think I'm very good looking, or for my money? She never wants to come on YouTube though, but one day I'm going to get her. No, be smart, plan your wedding right, and you actually don't have to have a huge wedding. I would say plan that. It could be a very big expense, and I would say that that could be a financial mistake that you should avoid. Tectonic, you don't have to have a big wedding. You don't. I'm Italian, so we have big weddings. What can I tell you? We love food and desserts. That's what I could tell you. And I know Nick enjoyed those desserts at my wedding. Um, let's see what else. Anybody else have any opinions on financial mistakes they made? Those are basically the financial mistakes that I can think of. Maybe another financial mistake you could make is not credit scores. Credit scores are important. You got to pay your bills on time, including your credit card and your mortgage, because a credit score nowadays, not when I started working when I was in my early 20s, but nowadays credit scores can affect your employment and you actually getting a job. Employers now, which I don't agree with, employers look at credit scores, which I don't agree with. But credit scores, keep your credit scores high by paying your bills on time and at least paying your credit cards the balance, the minimum balance on time. Definitely. I would say credit scores are a mistake that can cost you dearly. Um, yes, tectonic, going into stocks without learning about them. And let me tell you something. I've been doing this since I was 18, stock investing. And I got to tell you, I've learned so much, but you've got to definitely study and read about stock investing before you invest in stocks. Um, all right, guys. So listen, I'm going to end that stream here today. I want to thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. All right, I'm going to say subscribe to my channel and continue to watch my live streaming every Saturday, hopefully between 10 o'clock and 1. And guys, thank you so much. Uh, give a like on this video, and I'm definitely going to talk a lot of you guys. I'm sure you guys are going to call me because I have friends and relatives in this stream. I want to thank you, and I'm going to say goodbye, and thanks so much, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.